How to integrate your shadow. The dark side is unrealized potential, inner work. What if the parts of yourself you've buried hold the key to your deepest strength? In this video, we take you on a journey into the human shadow, not as something to fear, but as a path toward wholeness. Inspired by Jungian psychology, we'll uncover how the parts we've rejected, our anger, desire, even pain, are not flaws, but hidden energy. By facing what we've denied, we begin to reclaim our life with authenticity and meaning. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. Stay with us, the truth you seek might be waiting in the dark. No one is truly normal, the truth about the darkness within. We often believe that being good means avoiding darkness, that living a virtuous life is about rejecting all that is chaotic, painful, or morally ambiguous within us. Society teaches us to smile, behave, and be proper. From childhood, we are rewarded when we suppress our anger, hide our fears, and silence the strange voices within us. Over time, we construct a version of ourselves that fits into the world, a mask tailored by expectations. But behind that mask, something else lives, something we refuse to acknowledge. Psychology does not exist to label people as broken. It exists to reveal what has been hidden, and what must be reintegrated for us to be whole. The shadow is not a monster. It is the sum of all that has been repressed, misunderstood, or unloved within us. Carl Jung did not speak of shadow integration to frighten us, but to liberate us. He believed the goal of life is not perfection but wholeness, a union of all the parts that make us human. To realize that we all carry a shadow is not a sign of weakness. It is the first courageous step toward self-honesty. Our darkness does not make us evil. It makes us real. And in truth, there is no such thing as a normal person. Normal is often the name we give to those who have succeeded in hiding their wounds. But healing cannot happen in hiding. It begins with the recognition that everything we have pushed away, our anger, our sorrow, our impulses, our pain, is asking to be seen. We do not integrate the shadow to become someone else. We do it to come home to ourselves. This is not the journey of becoming good. It is the journey of becoming whole. And in a world obsessed with appearances, the decision to turn inward and face the dark is not only radical, it is sacred. Why do we bury ourselves? From an early age we begin to edit ourselves. We sense quickly what traits are acceptable and what will bring rejection. A child who cries too much is told to toughen up. A child who is too bold may be scolded for arrogance. The message is clear. If you want to be loved or accepted, you must reshape yourself to fit in. And so, layer by layer, we push parts of ourselves into hiding. What starts as adaptation becomes self-abandonment. We do not lose these parts. We exile them. This buried self does not disappear. It waits. It appears in sudden outbursts of emotion we do not understand. It shows up in dreams, in compulsions, in the tension that lives inside our bodies. Often, what we call anxiety or depression is not just chemical imbalance but the cry of a self that has been ignored for too long. We become strangers to ourselves not because we are broken, but because we have been trained to betray our own truth. To understand the shadow is to understand that much of what we label as bad was never truly bad. It was inconvenient. It disrupted the system. Our passions, our desires, our sensitivity, even our rage, these are not defects. They are signals. They point to what matters. But we are taught to doubt our inner signals. And so we follow the map others gave us. Walking paths that were never ours, feeling the growing emptiness of a life that is technically correct but spiritually vacant. Psychology at its best is not about fixing you. It is about helping you remember who you were before the world told you who to be. To ask why we bury ourselves is to ask how much of our life has been N spent pretending. The answer is often painful. But in that pain lies the beginning of truth. We cannot integrate what we have not dared to see. And so we begin by looking inward, not with judgment T with compassion. What have I abandoned just to survive? The lost ego and forgotten potential. We were not born with masks. We were born with energy, with instincts. With hunger for experience. As children we expressed freely until the world responded. Sometimes it embraced us. Other times it rejected us. Slowly we learned which parts of ourselves were safe to show. We divided our being. The parts that brought praise were nurtured. The parts that caused discomfort were buried. We called this maturity. We thought this was growing up. But something was lost in the process. Not only did we hide our impulses and emotions, we also exiled our potential. Our ability to imagine, to challenge, to assert. To create, these were often deemed too much, too intense. Too threatening. And so our greatness was mistaken for misbehavior. Our fire became something to fear. And we forgot what we once carried within. The ego, shaped by survival. Adapted to what others wanted. It became the spokesperson of the mask. But behind the ego is a deeper self. The source of vitality. Jung believed that the shadow is not just where we store our shame. It is also where we store our unlived life. Every talent suppressed. Every word silenced. Every vision dismal. Said. All of it still lives there, waiting. Many people feel empty not because they lack capacity but because they have denied it. The shadow is not simply darkness. It is potential in exile. Integrating the shadow is not about embracing only our pain. It is also about reclaiming our strength. Wholeness means remembering not just our wounds but our worth. Beneath the layers of fear and shame lies a forgotten fire. That fire is not dangerous. It is sacred. The journey toward integration begins when we stop asking what is wrong with us and start asking what has been left behind. What brilliance was buried simply because it made others uncomfortable? At light within us was dimmed to make others feel safer. The truth is not that we are lacking. The truth is that we are hiding. When morality becomes a chain, awakening from social conditioning. Most of what we call morality is not born from deep understanding but from imitation. We absorb the values of our family. Our culture, our religion, our schools. We are told what is right and what is wrong. Often before we have the capacity to question or reflect. These rules are not offered as invitations to think but as commands to obey. And so, we obey. Not because we understand. But because we fear rejection, punishment, or shame. Over time, these borrowed morals become invisible walls. We stop asking why we feel guilty. We stop wondering why some parts of us feel forbidden. Instead, we live in quiet dissonance. Trying to be good while hiding what we truly feel or need. This conflict becomes internalized. We think we are flawed because we cannot fit into a system that was never made for our whole self. Carl Jung warned that morality can become a mask we wear so well that we forget it is a mask. In trying to be virtuous, we may become dishonest. In trying to be accepted, we may abandon the truth. Awakening begins when we notice this tension. It begins when we see that morality, like culture, is not absolute. It is a human creation, and like all things human, it can be flawed. To question morality is not to become immoral. It is to become awake. It is to see that some values we inherited were rooted in fear, control, or hypocrisy. Some were designed to keep people small. When we integrate our shadow, we often find that what we were told was bad is simply powerful. Our assertiveness, our sexuality, our ambition. These are not sins. They are energy. They are life. Awakening from social conditioning is not an act of rebellion. It is a return to clarity. It is a willingness to examine what we have accepted and decide what is truly ours. It is not about destroying morality. It is about rebuilding it on the foundation of truth. And the first truth is this: you are not broken for feeling what you feel. You are not wrong for wanting to be whole. The inner enemy, how the denied shadow destroys us. What we refuse to face within ourselves does not simply vanish. It waits. Buried emotions and denied impulses do not disappear. They live on in the unconscious, gathering strength in silence. Over time, the rejected parts of us begin to find their way back, not through gentle whispers, but through breakdowns, compulsions, and emotional outbursts we cannot explain. We try to control them, suppress them even further, but the more we deny, the more they push. This is the tragedy of the unintegrated shadow. When we deny our anger, it turns into resentment. When we repress our desires, they reappear as shame. What we label as weakness or madness is often just the voice of a self we have refused to hear. We become strangers to ourselves. On the surface, we may seem calm, polite, even successful. But underneath, a storm is growing. The shadow does not stay buried forever. If we do not face it consciously, it will eventually take over in destructive ways. Addictions, broken relationships, sudden rage, depression, these are not random. They are symptoms of a deeper fracture, the result of inner division. Carl Jung warned that the less we are aware of our shadow, the more likely it is to control us. And when it does, we become like puppets pulled by invisible strings. What we call bad luck or self-sabotage is often the shadow acting in disguise. The enemy is not the shadow itself. The enemy is our refusal to meet it. Healing begins the moment we stop blaming external forces and turn inward with honesty. We ask, what am I running from? What part of me have I abandoned? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. Because if we do not make peace with our shadow, we risk being possessed by it. And nothing is more dangerous than a part of us we refuse to acknowledge. The cost of killing aggression is the loss of vitality. Aggression is one of the most misunderstood aspects of human nature. We often confuse it with violence, cruelty, or lack of control. From a young age, we are taught that aggression is dangerous and must be suppressed. But not all aggression is harmful. At its root, aggression is energy. It is the force that drives us to protect, to move forward, to set boundaries, to assert our existence in the world. When this energy is repressed, it does not disappear. It turns inward. We may lose our sense of direction. We may become passive, avoidant, or numb. We may struggle to say no or stand up for ourselves. Without aggression, we lose not only our ability to defend but also our ability to pursue. We stop taking risks. We hesitate to speak truth. We become disconnected from the fire that once made us feel alive. In many cases, people who appear calm or gentle are not truly at peace. They have simply buried their aggression so deeply that it shows up in indirect ways. It may surface as sarcasm, self-sabotage, or quiet bitterness. Or it may manifest physically through tension, illness, or fatigue. The body keeps score of every emotion we repress, and aggression is no exception. Reclaiming healthy aggression is essential for wholeness. It does not mean becoming violent. It means becoming real. It means allowing ourselves to feel the full range of our energy without shame. T means learning to channel that force into action, creativity, courage, and clarity. Jung believed that the integration of aggression is necessary for individuation, the process of becoming fully ourselves. To heal, we must no longer fear our fire. We must learn to stand in it without burning others or ourselves. This is not weakness. This is maturity. It is the art of turning heat into power. And power into purpose. Dialogue with the shadow self, the first steps of integration. Integrating the shadow does not begin with control. It begins with awareness. We cannot change what we refuse to see. The first step is to recognize that the parts of ourselves we fear, deny, or reject are still part of us. They are not enemies. They are signals. They carry stories, wounds, and truths that have been silenced. To ignore them is to remain divided. To acknowledge them is to begin healing. Shadow work is not a technique. It is a relationship. We must learn to listen to the parts of us we have pushed away. This listening is not always easy. The shadow speaks through discomfort. Through moods, through irrational reactions. It speaks through recurring dreams, fantasies, and impulses we do not understand. These are not mistakes. They are messages. They are the voice of something we left behind. Begin by observing your reactions. What makes you angry without reason? What traits in others do you judge harshly? What parts of yourself do you try to hide? These clues point to shadow material. The goal is not to eliminate these traits but to understand their roots. Often, they began as attempts to protect or express something essential. The aggression, the envy, the fear, they had a purpose once. They still do. Carl Jung described integration as a long process of diplomacy. We do not conquer the shadow. We negotiate with it. This means allowing ourselves to feel without immediate correction. To sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it. We become curious rather than critical. We ask our shadow, what do you want me to know? What pain are you carrying? What have I forgotten? The beginning of wholeness is not in strength. It is in honesty. When we turn toward what we once feared with openness, the shadow begins to shift. It no longer needs to fight for our attention. It becomes a guide rather than a threat. Balancing the beast and the will, how not to become a monster. Integrating the shadow is not about indulging every impulse. It is not an excuse to act out destructive urges. The shadow contains both danger and power. The task is to bring this power into balance. Without consciousness, strength becomes violence. Without compassion, truth becomes cruelty. This is why integration requires both courage and restraint. Some fear shadow work because they believe that facing their darkness will turn them into something worse. But the opposite is true. Repression does not purify us. It distorts us. When we deny our capacity for harm, we become more dangerous. Not because we are evil, but because we are unaware. Awareness brings choice. When we know what we carry, we can choose how to express it. Maturity means being able to feel anger without becoming violent. It means holding desire without being consumed by it. It means standing in our strength without crushing others. The goal is not to be tame. The goal is to be whole. Wholeness includes knowing our capacity for destruction, but choosing creation. It includes recognizing our pain, but choosing healing. Carl Jung believed that the more we are conscious of our shadow, the less power it has over us. We do not need to act on every feeling to integrate it. We need to acknowledge it, understand it, and choose what aligns with our deeper values. This is not suppression. It is transformation. To balance the beast and the will is to accept that both live within us. The beast brings energy. The will brings direction. When they move together, we become strong without becoming cruel. We become fierce without losing compassion. We become capable of great power, guided by great clarity. Becoming a whole human, imperfect but profound. To become whole does not mean becoming flawless. It means becoming real. Wholeness is not a destination. It is a way of being in which nothing is excluded. Not our pain, not our joy, not our contradictions. When we integrate the shadow, we accept that we are complex. We carry both light and dark. We are capable of kindness and cruelty. Of fear and courage, of failure and growth. This acceptance is not weakness. It is strength. It takes great courage to see ourselves without illusion. Most people live behind masks. They show the parts that are praised and hide what is judged. But to be whole is to take the mask off. It is to meet ourselves with honesty. And in doing so, we find something deeper than perfection. We find depth. We find truth. Wholeness is a return. A return to what we were before the world told us to split. Before we were told to silence one part of ourselves to be accepted. The integrated person is not someone without wounds. They are someone who no longer fears their wounds. They know where they have been broken, and they have chosen to live anyway. To live from a place of wholeness is to stop performing and start existing. It is to make peace with the full range of what we are. In doing so, we become not only more grounded but also more alive. We speak from the core. We act with integrity. We relate with presence. And in a world that often rewards surfaces, wholeness is a quiet rebellion, a sacred return to what is real. From darkness to light, the journey to rediscover life's meaning. The shadow is not just a collection of fears and wounds. It is also the doorway to meaning. Beneath the parts we have rejected lies the key to a deeper life. Many people spend years seeking purpose in achievements, relationships, or ideals given to them by others. But meaning that is not rooted in authenticity eventually feels hollow. True meaning begins when we stop searching outward and turn within. To rediscover meaning, we must first reclaim what we abandoned. The anger we feared. The dreams we gave up. The parts of us that felt too wild, too strange, too sensitive. These were not mistakes. They were signals. They pointed to something important, something real. When we invite them back, we begin to rebuild a life that belongs to us. This journey is not always comfortable. It often involves grief, not just for what happened to us, but for what we lost in trying to survive. We grieve the self we silenced. We grieve the time spent pretending. But grief is not the end. It is a passage. Through it, we gain clarity. We see what matters and what does not. We let go of the image we tried to maintain and step into the truth of who we are. Meaning is not found. It is created. It is shaped by how we choose to live with what we carry. It comes from living in alignment with what we truly value. When we integrate the shadow, we do not just become whole. We become connected, to ourselves, to others, to life. We begin to see the sacred in the ordinary. The light was never separate from the darkness. It was waiting within it, quietly, for us to return. Silent healing, loving the self in its truest form. Healing is not always loud. It does not always arrive in grand revelations or sudden peace. Sometimes, healing is quiet. It happens slowly. In the small moments when we choose kindness over criticism, presence over distraction, and truth over avoidance. It is the gentle unfolding of self-compassion, the willingness to sit with our pain without trying to fix it immediately. For many, the hardest part of shadow work is not facing the darkness. It is learning to love what was found there. We are taught to love only the polished parts of ourselves. We are praised when we perform, when we succeed, when we meet expectations. But healing asks us to do something different. It asks us to meet ourselves where we are, even if that place is messy, scared, or uncertain. True self-love is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is the daily decision to stay loyal to ourselves. Especially when we feel unworthy. It is not about being perfect. It is about being present. When we stop running from our wounds and choose to tend to them, we break the cycle of abandonment. We become the parent, the friend, the witness we always needed. Carl Jung believed that what we resist in ourselves grows stronger. But what we accept loses its power to harm. To heal is to integrate, and to integrate is to embrace. In this embrace, something begins to soften. The inner war quiets. We no longer need to prove or perform. We begin to simply be, and to know that being is enough. Silent healing is not the end of the journey. It is the ground on which new life grows. A life rooted in truth, compassion, and presence. A life where we no longer hide from ourselves, but live in gentle alignment with who we really are. This journey into the shadow is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you are, beneath the masks, beyond the fear, and through the pain. Wholeness is not a distant ideal. It is the quiet return to yourself, moment by moment. In accepting your darkness, you do not lose your light. You find where it truly begins.